Hello and welcome to episode 18 of Mjolnir the Movies. As ever, with me are James and Neil. Hello to you.
Hello.
Hello.
And I'm David Yorkshire. And this week we had a request from one of our subscribers. Please subscribe, to do the 1976 Sidney Lumet film Network. And this is a film, I'll be honest, that I hadn't seen for absolute years, and in fact I had to re-watch it because I couldn't remember what the hell happened in it, and it was almost like watching it for the first time again. This is a film with Faye Dunaway. I have to say that I don't know about you chaps, but I personally think that it would have been a better film had Faye Dunaway worn less clothes throughout the film. I don't know about you gentlemen.
It would have made it exponentially better.
Yes, I think so too. Now it's I think I'll address the elephant in the room first of all, because this is an extremely Jewish film. The director, Sidney Lumet, is a Jew. It was written by Paddy Chayefsky, who's also a Jew, and it was produced by Howard Gottfried and Paddy Chayefsky, who I've just mentioned, and Howard Gottfried, as the name suggests, is also Jewish. It is, and the cinematography by Owen Reutemann.
Production company.
Yes, edited by Alan Heim.
Pretty much every actor in it and every character in it.
Although that's appropriate for a film about the media and news.
Yes.
Yeah.
Production company Metro Goldwyn Mayer. Oh dear, it's
Mayer.
Yes. This I think is something that we're going to have to address. There are very big Jewish themes in this film, aren't they, gentlemen? What do you think about the beginning of the film, though?
When the guy's delivering his speech about, wanting to kill himself live on air.
Yeah. So I think that's actually quite Jewish in its themes. Oh, okay. You don't really agree with me on that? Or
I'm interested in hearing how you see that. Explain that one about.
They all seem very interested in suicide and in the self-destruction and those kind of things. And also, if you notice, his colleagues don't take any notice of him whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's always this sort of anti-human aspect to them, and particularly the scriptwriter, Paddy Chayefsky. I find him an extremely a-human writer, if you like. He's someone who's not concerned by people whatsoever, I find.
And that was repeated at the start, of course, with the end, where you've got the adverts blaring louder and louder over the top of the report of him dying. It was a very similar effect.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
He's someone who's far more interested in... I know what he's doing there, to an extent. What he's trying to suggest is that television is this huge edifice and that people are insignificant in comparison. But yet at the same time, who's in charge of television?
Yeah. And you see the influence one man has.
Yeah.
It almost seems that throughout the film, they've seen everybody else outside of the media and the entertainment industry as almost like pawns, something that they can manipulate, control, film, and generate views from. Everybody else is secondary.
Yeah, it's a film written by somebody who can look out at the public as something else, not something they're part of. If you see what I mean, the masses are something that is controlled and manipulated, and as you say, but they're not talking about that as part of the masses suddenly saying, "Gosh, we're getting played here." This is written from somebody that's sitting on the inside of the tower looking down.
Yeah. You see, the thing is about the whole script, I always got the impression that the politics was far more important than the people. That the characters were really insignificant. They were just ciphers for various different political themes or currents or ideological aspects and things like that. And certainly this comes down to the scriptwriter Paddy Chayefsky. He was very much into politics and so on. He was very much someone who enjoyed political arguments and philosophical arguments with other people, and sought them out, and was very competitive and didn't really care about a particularly moral side or anything like that. And he often changed sides just to see if he could argue it. So this again is very much, to me, a trait that we often associate with Jewish people, in that they don't have a particular essence to them. It's certainly something that Richard Wagner, the great composer of the 19th century, remarked upon, in that they don't have an essence as such, and that everything is superficial to them, and that they, although they're very intellectual people, they don't have a real essence, a real belief, a real, I suppose, what Heidegger would call a Dasein. I don't know if you got that impression about this.
Well, the relationship between Max and Diana, and Max's wife as well, and Max, it was quite bizarre, wasn't it? Really, I mean, obviously there's some deliberate, sort of speaking to the audience as part of that, but it was so unnatural and strange, and the way they kept pretending that it was a script within a script, obviously, but it was too self-aware and strange, the way they were acting, to sort of, it kept. I think it took me out of the film a bit.
Yeah, the worst part for me were the scenes where you had relationships focused on. So between Schumacher and his wife, or Schumacher and Faye Dunaway's character, Diana Christensen. Yeah. These seemed extremely artificial somehow.
Yeah.
The script
like
really broke
soap.
down at that point. Yeah, exactly, like a very bad soap. Perhaps that's deliberate. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just. I was never sure myself, if it was deliberate or if it's just somebody that didn't quite get how real people should interact in that situation.
I think it's like one of these strange attempts to pretend to make a satirical film, but what they're actually doing is showing what actually happens.
It could be
to make people think, all they do is manipulate media. Yeah, that old cigar. But he's putting it out there to say, no, we actually do that, and this is exactly what goes on behind closed doors.
Well, there was the part where I would say it must have been deliberate, where trying to get that kind of message across, when you saw Diana talk about nothing but work from the start of that date to the right up to post-orgasm with Max. She's still talking about work, never stops. So that's obviously a deliberate message there. That's not accidental writing.
Yeah. And you've got to remember at the time as well, I'm not sure what year Vietnam stopped or finished or ended, but it was made in 1976, so they still had the fear of the communists, I suppose, that the media was churning out at that time period. There's also the sort of Che Guevara type people, the communists, the Mao Zedong group. So they're picking all these bad guys, just like what the media does now, and focus entirely on them. But behind closed doors, these guys are just degenerates, wanting to commit suicide, complaining and bitching
cheating on the harm done by
yeah.
wife.
Yeah. But here's all these bad guys for you to focus on.
Yeah, but in fact, Diana Christensen wants to bring them in simply because of ratings and so on, and that this is almost very much a critique of the left in a way. The Mao Zedong bunch was actually they're sort of a disparate group of Black Panther types and communists and everything.
Yeah.
I notice they always avoid the Jewish question in these sorts of groups. That's
Well, there was
something.
nobody explicitly Jewish, was there really, in the film?
No, this is very true.
Well, some of the names, though, I think,
But
names of the characters.
Yeah, but that's something that could just be overlooked. You know, it's not. There was nobody. You know, that was never part of anybody's character. If you see, I mean, look at the obvious communists, the obvious black nationalist types, the Mao Zedong, followers. Those were all clearly signalled.
Yeah, the Jews in it, they weren't like these guys with big noses and like from the meme or anything like that, rubbing their hands together. But I think it was trying to point out that they were Jewish, and I think he was the director was probably proud of that because that's his people.
I would disagree with you there. I think that it's basically a Jew taking the piss out of Gentiles. Because if you look at the names, they're not really Jewish at all. I mean, Schumacher is not Jewish. Schumacher is very much a German Gentile name. I've never known of anyone called.
Well, there was a Formula One racer.
Jewish.
I suppose, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Michael Schumacher. I remember there was also a German goalkeeper called Schumacher as well in the 1980s. Right.
Oh, good point. No, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
So,
and even the black nationalists, they gave him was it Khan? They gave him the name. So they're sort of muddling up and bringing in all sorts of cultures and religions and political movements, but they're keeping away from certain ones, despite the fact this whole thing's centered around the media.
Yeah, well, I mean that term, Great Ahmed Khan, that's very much a nod towards the Nation of Islam, of course. Because the Nation of Islam, the people at the top, they generally name themselves after Arabic kinds of names.
Although another thing, much like we talked about with the coonskin discussion, it was very unflattering. There was nothing nice about this, really, when you look at the characters shown.
No, this is the thing about
if this isn't a film that's just it makes the white people look bad or something like this. The black people in this looked pretty bad, as well. I mean, the male leader was firing a gun off randomly, and he seemed quite, an unpleasant character. They make the female kind of spokesperson loud and obnoxious. On it goes.
Yeah, very much so. In fact, the black leaders. If you notice the great Ahmed Khan, the first image you get of him is eating fried chicken. How much of a racial stereotype? How much of a racial stereotype do you want?
And involved whilst they make him involved whilst it's a crime as well. Remember, they've got the footage of them robbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's pretty outrageous negative stereotype shoved in.
That's right. But of course,
not sympathetic at all.
No, but of course, he's not sympathetic to non-Jews. This is the whole point of Paddy Chayefsky. He's very much a Jewish supremacist. And in fact, that was borne out when he was casting, because for the part of Diana, Sidney Lumet, he suggested Vanessa Redgrave. Now, Vanessa Redgrave, as you know from the British Redgrave family, they're very much leftist and so on. But because they're leftist, they've always taken the Palestinian cause. And of course, Sidney Lumet, he suggested her, and Paddy Chayefsky said no, he didn't want her because she'd taken the Palestinian cause, and he said, well, isn't that blacklisting? And Paddy Chayefsky said, not when a Jew does it to a Gentile. I suspect he didn't use the word Gentile either.
No.
I suspect it was Goy.
Yeah.
But anyway.
There's a very famous YouTube video out there of Gene Simmons, the bassist from Fake Rockers, Kiss, and off camera you hear Gene Simmons in the background saying, "No, don't do that. That's for the guy."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. These things slip out.
Yeah, but of course, recently on Facebook and so on, it's very interesting what's going on in that we are not allowed anymore to question Israeli nationalism, Jewish nationalism, of course, Zionism, or whatever you want to call it. But yet, white nationalism is banned as a very bad thing. So Jewish,
even separatism.
That's right, even separatism.
Which just means you want to go your own way and leave other people to it.
Yeah, which pretty much describes our position, of course. You know, we're not supremacists. We don't really want to give a shit about other people's. You know, that's my personal position. I don't know about you guys.
Well, if they want to do something in their own back garden, leave them to it.
Exactly. So, including the Jews, you know, whatever they do in Israel, I don't really care. But yet, they're not applying the same yardstick to us. And that's the problem.
Mm.
That's the double standard.
Mm. Thinking about the... Oh, if you get something to say, carry on.
No, go on.
Oh, it's just a slight subject shift. Thinking about the Facebook situation that out in big media does actually apply well to this as well. Especially is, what do you two think the overall message with this, would you say was, are they showing that it's pointless to fight the system because the system will just absorb you, use you, or get rid of you? Or are they trying to show that, oh, maybe you could if you don't fall for the traps?
Whew.
It's a big question.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
No.
Somebody has to go for it.
Well, one of the very first scenes for me, and this is kind of relevant, you can tie this in with Facebook nowadays. The first scene is the news broadcaster, and he expresses that he's going to kill himself live on air in a week's time, and nobody cares. No one's watching. No one's paying attention apart from one sort of small lady at the far side of the room. Now, people on Facebook are constantly getting themselves into trouble, putting out messages, begging for help, begging for support, maybe attention seeking. I don't know what it could be, but people generally ignore it. And people feel that their lives are out there and everybody should pay attention. And that's their platform to do it. And that's what he done. Like he said in that little monologue, not long after he was sick of the bullshit. And I think people like that on Facebook feel like that, and they see Facebook as a platform to put their emotions out there. And 9 times out of 10, people don't care. And I think it's almost like almost a deliberate thing. Give people the platform to do it. Give them some kind of platform to get attention. And when they don't get it, that'll be the end of them.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that I never thought about the film, actually. Because it's very much says it at the very beginning that his life's over, that television is all that he had, because you know, he's no longer got his wife or a family or anything like that, and so all he's lived for is his television slot.
And some people, I think, only live for their Facebook accounts. And Millennial Woes, for example, when his Twitter account goes, depression, woe is me.
Mm.
Yeah, that's very true. It does appear to us, of course, that that's very much the case, in that, you have a lot of these e-celebrities now who just seem to live 24/7 on the internet. I suspect that Varg Vikernes is another one, actually. Look at how long, how often he's on that internet. Doesn't seem to be ever off it. Certainly doesn't do any gardening or anything like that.
He's not out hunting bears.
No, he's not. It goes to the bread dispenser every so often, about 12 kilometers away in his commie jeep. Anyway, but yeah, you're right. In a way, I suppose, because of the democratization of technology, we've got a proliferation of celebrities, if you like, and so we've got these new e-celebrities like PewDiePie and so on. Although I've never watched him, I don't know what he does. But yet, there are people with followings, and what would happen to a lot of these people who only seem to live for that if it was taken away from them? Would they become like this character played by Peter Finch? Peter Finch, of course, is an excellent actor. I think that actually is probably the one standout performance in this film as Howard Beale. Actually had to learn to do an American accent for this, and not just an American accent, of course, but American broadcaster's accent, and have that whole convincing demeanor of an American broadcaster. That's something that he did extremely well, especially considering that he did not have the accent at all. He was, I think he started off in Britain, then was brought up in Australia for a while, and then came back to Britain, played in a lot of British films and so on, and then went to Hollywood. This was actually as well, ironically, his last film. Just as he dies, just as he dies at the end of this film, he died straight after this film in real life and was awarded his Academy Award for his performance on this posthumously. Yep.
Seems almost fitting in a sad way.
I know.
Do you notice as well, and this is going to sound insane, but I'll bring it just for entertainment value. This character says, "I've been doing this job for 33 years." Anyone notice that part? That's like one of these, like, I'm not sure how much I believe in it, to be honest with you, but it's strange how there's a lot of talk how 33 means the end of something or the start of something, and 33 is a very important number.
Well, the 33 thing comes from Jesus originally, doesn't it?
Right. Well, I'm not too sure. I just know I see it a hell of a lot.
Yeah. Well, it comes from how long Jesus lived, which was 33 years, which is probably why the Freemasons have it as a sacred number, in that when you get to level 33, you're sort of the Grand Mason or whatever.
Okay. So was that just like a coincidence that that's been written in? He's been doing that job for 33 years and now he's getting fired?
Yeah, it's probably sort of a reference to death of a Jesus kind of character.
Yeah.
But they call him they make out him as a kind of messianic figure. They even explicitly call him that.
That's right, yeah.
In the story, the Diane character calls him a Messiah.
Yeah. But of course, 3 and 3 added together is also 6.
Oh, 6! I've heard that number somewhere before. I can't remember exactly where I heard it, but I've heard it quite a lot recently.
Yeah, but why is it the Jewish number? Well, because man was created on the 6th day, according to the Torah / Bible. So that's where it all comes from. Yeah, exactly. That's where it all comes from. This figure 6. It is the number of a man. Don't forget that what is said in the book of Revelation, 666, the number of the beast. It is the number of a man.
And it's also a great Iron Maiden song.
It is indeed.
It's the best thing to come of all these religions was Iron Maiden song.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. So so this is where all this sort of Judaic nonsense comes from, anyway. And definitely there are parallels with Judaism and with Christianity during the film. That is true. And yes, he does indeed become a messianic figure. But interestingly, of course, he preaches the new gospel, which is given to him by what's he called now? BT, isn't he?
That's right. After he decides to intervene and give him a new gospel.
That's right. Yes. Gives him the gospel. Ned Beatty, isn't he? I was getting confused there. I kept thinking Warren Beatty. No, it's not Warren Beatty. Ned Beatty, of course it is. Yes.
Arthur Jensen.
That's right. Yes, Arthur Jensen, who gives him the gospel according to liberal capitalism.
You got to remember as well. He kind of sacrifices himself, doesn't he? I mean, he says he's going to commit suicide. And he gets a second chance to redeem himself, and he goes back on air and he has another rant. So he kind of sacrifices himself. Then is reborn at like the 33 thing. I just notice, I see connections like that. I don't know if there's something wrong with me, but
no, you're right, because Jews often imprint numerology into their texts.
Yeah,
and I suppose
and stories we're all familiar with as well, like the Jesus sacrificing himself for our betterment, apparently, being resurrected.
And it makes sense with a messianic character. Deliberately a messianic character would have those kind of themes and hints written in. Yeah,
absolutely. But interestingly, of course, he's always an actor, and he's not real. He's a bit of a faker, isn't he? You notice
I think Jesus was one of those too.
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely. Yeah, of course. From our pagan perspective, Jesus was indeed a notorious charlatan.
Sorry if we offended anybody out there.
Unsubscribed.
Yeah, all the Deuce Vault crew will be fucking unsubscribing.
But yeah, he's a faker. If you notice when he goes into his little feints on the stage, he does it at the end of every performance, and you see the eyes at some point. He focuses on his eyes and everything, and he's looking around, waiting for that moment when he's going to faint, and and throws himself onto the floor, and he's carried away. Almost like if you remember James Brown's performance, this sort of godfather of soul music, and he used to sort of collapse at some point. Two minders used to, drag him off the stage, and and they go no, and he'd come back on for an encore and so on. As though he'd given his all to the audience.
And now he's coming back for just one more fucking opportunity.
That's right, yeah. And so this is the theatrical element of it, and it's just a performance, and it is just an actor in reality. So there is an element to the fact that he's gone a bit mad and a bit bonkers and everything, but there's also this element that he's still that guy who's a television performer.
The sort of dishonest aspect of him, the faker, especially as if he was a genuine believer in what he was preaching at first, the Beale's intervention wouldn't have had any effect on him. Yet you could see how powerfully he was affected by this speech. When if you believed completely the opposite and thought this character was evil and so on, you wouldn't be swung around into preaching his new gospel at all. It would wash over you and you would ignore him.
Yeah.
But instead, you could see it was probably more in awe of the fact this was the big corporate boss directly talking to him and tapping him for some role, which was probably quite exciting for somebody wanting to stay on or climb up the ladder.
Yeah.
Have you noticed as well, Ned Beatty's character? I'm not sure for every single scene, but his face is always dark, or he's always really far away, so you can't really see his face all too well. It's either in shadow or something like that, and it gives him like a sinister side, which I think people would relate to, because he's effectively the devil, isn't he?
Mm.
It's sort of both, isn't it? It's the devil and Yahweh in one.
Yeah.
Although, if you actually look at Christianity, stroke Judeo-Christianity from Jungian terms, the devil in any case would be Yahweh's shadow. But anyway, I'll just throw that in there for you Christians out there.
Yeah.
Unsubscribe. Unsubscribe.
Well, he's got to be actually thinking about it from a philosophical and theological perspective, because isn't Yahweh in everything? Isn't he part of everything? Isn't he omnipresent? So therefore he must be also the devil. Did I just say
that? Also means I had a bowl for him in my rice pudding the day earlier on.
There's a lot of things going wrong with that whole belief, isn't there? But maybe we shouldn't get into that. We could just pick it apart all night.
What we're saying essentially, just to narrow it down to a sentence, is it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, coming back to the film, yes, he's very much. I thought he was very much like the character we've explored. RoboCop, of course, is quite like the character of the old man, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The head of OCP. So that's I got that same kind of vibe from him. He's a guy who lives for business, for internationalism. Of course, he preaches internationalism to him. He preaches this idea that there will be no more nations, no more countries, and that basically
the individual doesn't matter, people don't matter.
Yep. All the sort of things that are happening now. Now, it was interesting that the person in the comment section who asked for this, requested this film, said that this was more related to our time than in fact in 1976 when it was released. And I think that he made a very fair point there. It is very much a film for our time, as much as it was 48 years ago as it is now.
Yeah.
And we've seen the development of liberal capitalism and how they've deliberately destroyed nations. Of course, we live in the time at the moment where we are, as we speak, one day post-Brexit. But have we got Brexit? No, we haven't. We're still tied into the whole internationalist system.
Yeah. That was a big waste of time, wasn't it, folks? And you feel good that you went down to your voting station and ticked a little piece of paper and stuck it in an envelope and posted it through a box for all the good it's worth.
Gentlemen, who called it from the beginning?
Well, I can't fault the folk that at least tried. They were misguided, obviously, and well-informed in the sense that they thought they were going to get an honest shot.
The thing is, the government's never really been honest. So I think what's going to happen is they're just going to postpone it, and all the people who flooded in to get here before it actually kicked off, when they vote, it's not going to change anything, folks. It's just going to be the same old thing, just on repeat.
Well, they've made it clear from the start that whatever happens, they're going to keep the continuity of their plans going, no matter what. And they've made that public statement over and over again.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's all a bunch of nonsense, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a distraction actually from what's really important, which is bringing down the entire system of liberal capitalism. Because it's very interesting that liberal capitalism is perceived as being right-wing, particularly by Americans, and if you notice in the alt-right, They're very much liberal capitalists. They call themselves libertarians and so on, which is actually just liberal capitalism repackaged, which is Whiggism.
And they'd be very much in line probably with the Beale character, who talks about the end of nations and how individuals don't matter, which is completely contrary to the kind of things we would think.
Yeah. The thing is that what we think as proper rightists is that both the individual and the group matter, and that you can only be an individual as part of a group, because the group gives the individual context for his individuality. Now then, wrap your heads around that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, I'm in a philosophical mood tonight.
You certainly are. How much of the mead have you been drinking?
On the third pint now, gentlemen. 10%
Third
it is
pint?
as well, yeah.
That's a secret. Stock up in the meat. That's a secret for a good podcast.
Yeah.
It bloody is. Well, it's doing things to my brain that I never imagined.
This has been a very deep podcast. We've gone to a whole new levels here.
Yeah.
We have indeed.
Good suggestion. Whoever it was who suggested it, well done.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's another thing with the film I was thinking back to the question I was asking earlier on was, I think the film, although it's great for kind of giving a presentation revealing the situation, it is relevant to our times. I think the problem with it, from my point of view, though, is that taken on its own, it's a demoralising film. Not just because of the obvious sad ending, but because it's giving people this sense of, even this messiah, a prophet, that's willing to go all out, ends up just becoming commercialised and making somebody else profit instead of actually doing any good. And I think that's maybe some of the danger of, maybe it hints at some of the danger, but the sort of bad news porn or the internet ranters you might get who don't offer anything positive, anything creative or solutions. They're just telling you a lot of bad things and how angry they are, but then nothing. And in this film, mocks those people and does a sort of ritual execution of one of them. Yeah. Just to show how ineffective and how little they care about them.
Yeah.
And I think if that's all you think there is, just saying, I'm really annoyed at this, that and the other, then you will end up feeling depressed and powerless, or, end up feeling suicidal or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
You could almost argue that guy walked out there, he looked almost like he was waiting to get shot.
The thing is about this film is that, of course, as we've explored, it's a Jewish film, and Chayefsky deliberately, I think, creates a scenario where there's no way out. So he more or less pens Howard Beale into a situation that he can't get out of other than death. You'll notice that they do this quite a lot. And so, for him, there is no escape. And in fact, for everyone in the film, there is no escape. But there is an escape in reality. And the escape is to reject all of that.
Yeah. In reality, he could have quit and done his own thing. And you know that somebody that's just had recently a 60 million audience is not going to end up sleeping in the streets with no support. Even if only a thousandth of those people continue to listen, that's still 60,000 people.
Yeah.
That's right. He could have walked away at any time, but he was like any addict.
And done a lot of real good. If he'd stuck to his own thing instead of getting compromised, he could have done real good. There wasn't actually a real trap there if he had the will to walk away.
That's right. Of course, the idea is that he was insane, in part, which meant that he was not in his right self and so on, and you have the character Schumacher trying to help him and so on, who was obviously distanced from him so that he couldn't help him. But equally, Schumacher didn't do what he could have done, really. He could have gone on at any point and gone on camera and said to his friend, no, this is not the right way, you know, walk away from all this. And got everybody to walk away. And said that, you know, this is doing no good for this guy, it's doing no good for the audience, and so on. But of course, Chayefsky is not going to give anyone a way out.
Especially as the Max character the Max character seemed quite willing to quit his job at various points. So you think he would just chance trying to help his friend, like as you described, because obviously the consequence wouldn't frighten him.
That's right. I mean, at some point he resigns, doesn't he? If I remember rightly.
Yeah. And he makes multiple threats to just say, "Well, forget it," and walk away on principle. So, if he's willing to do that, why wouldn't he do it as you describe?
That's right. And you see, the thing is that Howard Beale, he's put into this situation where apparently he has absolutely nothing else to live for. But yeah, as you say, he's quite comfortably well off. He could have done anything afterwards.
And you'd imagine somebody like that must have quite a nest egg.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if he hadn't, you know, and coming back to all of us, today is the first day of the rest of your life. Life is what you make of it. And you know, even if you don't have money, there are things that you can do that don't cost. And you can do something simply like for example, a few days ago, out of the blue, because I write poetry and I've written poetry for a long time, and of course people will know that you know, I used to edit in a magazine called Mjolnir magazine and so on. And a few days ago, Robert Taylor, this American poet, got in touch with me and said, would you like to contribute to my forthcoming anthology of various poets of the right? I said, lovely. Yeah, of course I would.
And how much did it cost you?
Absolutely nothing.
There you go.
Yep.
So, as I say, there are things that people can do. For example, Neil is creating a wonderful music project at the moment. Yeah. And okay, he's paid for the instruments, but he works hard to pay for those instruments. He has a day job and so on. It's not glamorous, but it pays for the stuff that he loves.
Yeah, and you do a lot on even the low rung of society for jobs. You can still do a lot of really interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you think of all the high art of the past. What would a lot of that? I mean, unless you're doing some great marble sculpture, 99% it would cost in materials almost nothing compared to what people will happily spend on their Xbox, you know, their new laptop, their big telly, or a holiday that they're going to have and forget about once they sober up.
Yeah. And people who say they don't have the money to do art and things like that, I say there's cave paintings that are thousands and thousands of years old. If they could do it, you could go and get some pencils. Surely you could figure out some way to make some art.
Oh, I mean,
your imagination.
You could get a book on how to draw, you know, probably for £5, and it'll be very good. Less probably if you shopped around charity shops, you know, on eBay or something. A packet of pencils out the dollar store, pound store, and there you go. You can learn how to draw, and if you put the time in, you could be as good as anybody else, basically.
Exactly.
And what would that cost you? You know, the book's a one-off cost. A packet of pencils once a month. You know, somebody can afford that, unless they're somehow in Liberia in the streets somewhere.
Yeah. I think if you can't afford a pencil and a pad of paper, then there's something serious going on.
Yeah, there's apocalypse or something.
That's right. I mean, you know, I have a notebook, and I have a pen, and I have my imagination, and the stuff that I've learned through books. and
Yep.
that's what I use for my poetry. So how
And
much?
even if you're just sweeping a floor somewhere, you can afford all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much did that pad and that pen cost me? I'll tell you exactly how much it cost me. The pad, it cost me 80 pence from the range. If you want to know the name of the shop where I bought it from.
W.H. Smith.
No, the range it's called.
Oh, the range.
I don't know if you have it up in Scotland, but anyway. And a pen, of course, it cost me less than 20 pence. So that is everything I need for art, other than book learning. And where do you learn from books? I'll tell you where you learn from the books. From your local library, where it costs nothing to join.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you can't afford a pen, just steal one from the library.
Well, I'll tell you where you get them from for nothing. You can either go into IKEA or you can go into your local bookmakers. There you go.
Okay. There you go then.
So, as I say, the best things in life are free.
Yeah.
This is a great truism, and of course, the thing is that when you do things like that, and when people realize what you're doing, as I say, you know, I've thrown a few of these poems up on Facebook and everything. I've got myself into an artistic crowd and so on, simply because they respect me for the creative talent that I've got. You know, I'm not going to be churlish or you know, sort of be so humble that to sort of do myself down and everything. I know I've got a bit of talent.
Absolutely.
Not that that didn't take work. Of course, it takes work. It takes years of work. Just as Neil has taken ages to do well on the guitar and to create great music. Just as James has taken pains to do the woodwork that he does and so on, and the lathe work, and that's a skill. But it's a skill that can be learned. All skills can be learned.
Yep.
And you know,
and they stay with you. I mean, a lot of the I mean, nothing. I'm not going to be a Puritan. There's nothing wrong with temporary pleasures, but if you are on a low income and you're worried about money, think of these longer skills we're talking about as an investment. 20 years from now, you're not going to regret learning how to draw or how to write poetry or how to sing or dance or whatever you do. You're never going to regret investing money into it. But I can guarantee you that, you know, you're not going to say, oh, wow, I'm really glad I got absolutely hammered in Ibiza, or I bought a slightly upgraded model of Xbox that I've now shoved in a cupboard 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Those are things that you burn money on and distract yourself when you've got nothing to do, but they're not something that you should consider seriously investing in. And ironically, all those things you burn money on are the things that cost a lot of money and you have to work really hard, if you're especially in a low income, to pay for, while the things that we're talking about being best tend to be the cheapest.
Yeah, that's right. And the thing is that once you start getting good at this kind of thing, and once you become creative and a culture bearer, as it was once called, you attract other people towards you, and good people as well.
Yeah.
And so, when we look at Ned Beatty's little speech as Arthur Jensen in his film, it's quite hollow. What he's talking about is looking at things from a Whiggish, liberal capitalist perspective, and it's hollow, and it's based on money and the making of money, and that you have to be in it to make money and to get on in life and so on. But that's only one way of looking at life, and it's an empty one in the end, because you will end up soulless, an empty shell. And this is, of course, what happens to Peter Finch's Howard Beale, in that it becomes an empty shell. And in a way, his ending, where he gets shot, is just putting him out of his misery.
Yeah.
There's another way, and this is our way, and this is the way in which being part of a group of an ethnicity has meaning, and it's the wellspring of culture and of beauty and of aesthetics and of things that have deep meaning and that resonate with people. And as I say, you will attract positive people instead of the charlatans who just live for money and for a bit of hedonism, and they will go off this earth having done nothing in life, and they will not be remembered.
Yeah, that's a tragic thought, isn't it? To think that when you die, no one's going to remember you. It's really depressing. So that's why I always say to people, go out there and try and create something, build something that is going to be here after you go.
And there's nothing, and there's nothing wrong with people might get this idea because of the kind of, I'd say, toxic TV image, and the internet's not much better. This idea that you've got to be either a Hollywood star or PewDiePie for the internet stuff, or bust. There's nothing wrong with being just known at your local pub for being that guy that's good with guitar. That's you can take pride in that, being just a local character who's known to have talent.
Yeah,
that's a good thing too.
Yeah, or get like one of your photographs in the local newspaper, or try to.
Yeah, it's a bit of pride there.
And if you can afford a phone and you can afford to get on the internet, surely you can take a photograph. You can learn to do something. There's nothing out there that's holding you back from doing anything. If we're living 150 years ago, you might have an argument. It's 2019 now. So there's no excuses for not learning how to do something and enjoying it. And you will enjoy it if you do it.
Yeah.
But do something that you want to do, though, I would say. Do something that would really, really interest you.
Yeah, and try them. If you're not sure, try a few different things and just keep trying.
Yeah. Or read a history book, get involved with a history group, something. It doesn't have to be something where you're creating something specifically or something artistic. It could just be like a really deep invested hobby that you have, like for learning.
The thing is that what I always say is that everybody's good at something, and the thing is that what people find is they're good at the thing that interests them.
Yeah, yeah. You'll get that fire as soon as you hear something or hear the name of something. It will light something inside you that will make you investigate further.
That's right. Because people get better at the things that they want to get better at, because it interests them, and because they want to see how far they can go. This is a very rightist idea. It's a very elitist idea, and elitism, in its proper sense, is a very good thing, because you always want to see how far you can push yourself, and how far you can go in your talents and so on. There's nothing wrong with that. The left wants to equalize everything. In other words, to bring it down to a lowest common denominator. What we say is the exact opposite. That you want to push yourself and see how far you can go.
And even as part of that, help others, reach the heights they could do.
Absolutely, because everything is based on the pyramidal system in an elitist society. In that the highest is only the highest because he's at the top of a pyramid, but you need the pyramid, and you need all those levels.
Yeah.
Where the people at the bottom are also important.
It's why
because you have to have a grassroots in everything, so that the pyramid is built up, whereby in each level you will get fewer and fewer people. Because as the difficulty goes up, people will fall by the wayside. They will find their own level. But that doesn't mean that they're unimportant. They're absolutely important because they're what the pyramid is built upon.
It's why the farmer or the butcher or whatever can take pride in Shakespeare, because he knows that Shakespeare sprung from the world that he was part of and kept ticking and contributed to. And each wee contribution was what helped somebody like him rise up.
Absolutely. You see, and this is the nature of an organic society. And this is also why things should be nationalist and not internationalist, because of course we need to know who we are, and that everyone has a place, and what that place is, and that everyone is secure in the knowledge of their function and their ability within a society. And of course there are different pyramids as well, and you will be further up one pyramid and lower down on another. So for example, people will take up sports and they may be better at sports than they are at artistic endeavours, and so on. And that is all good. This all makes for an organic and well structured and happy society, and not this bullshit internationalist society, if you can call it a society, that the likes of Arthur Jensen want to see, and the likes really of what Paddy Chayefsky wants to see, who of course is the scriptwriter behind this character of Arthur Jensen, played by Ned Beatty. This bloody mead's good, I'll tell you that, gentlemen.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking we need to get you on the mead regular.
Yes, I think we'll probably bring things to a close now.
But it was a good suggestion, though.
I'm glad. I was just going to say, I'm glad we got this suggestion. Really good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I think we've blown some minds. We've definitely lost a subscriber or two.
But at least we've got one subscriber. Should be very happy we discussed this.
But the thing is that we may get other subscribers, better subscribers. And that's what I.
Well, obviously, if they unsubscribe, they're just riffraff anyway. all the good people subscribe to us. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
One thing did you notice, going back to internationalism, in that you have this takeover during the film by Communications Corporation of America, and then later in the film you got this Saudi Arabian bunch who take over that.
Looks like Alex Jones was right then.
Yes. Again, we're avoiding the elephant in the room. Of course, the Jews always like to pin it on the Arabs, don't they?
Somebody else.
It's literally Alex Jones. You've got the Mao, so it's the communist Chinese and the Saudi money taking over. It's literally Alex Jones's story, written decades before he came out with it.
That's probably where he got his act from.
It must be.
They'll get
because he's
from
mad
some
still
film.
and he's not taking it apparently.
Yep.
Alex, we've got you worked out. You've ripped this film off for decades.
That's right, yeah, he's very much like that Howard Beale character, absolutely. Yeah.
He's got the communist Chinese nonsense and it's all the rest of it.
One thing, when Howard Beale goes on his rant, the first real rant, did you notice the clocks? Because I know that you like those little bits of trivia, Neil.
Oh.
And the little bits in films and intertextuality and all that kind of stuff. Did you notice the clocks?
I didn't. I'll have to watch it again. If I watched it again, I would definitely see it. But
well, there's a row of clocks behind him, of course,
right,
and they're on various different times, of course, depending on the time zones and so on. And it's 20 past the hour, of course. Now, if you look at the Los Angeles one, it's 20 past 4.
Okay.
Are you getting it yet?
So, where's this movie set in New York?
No, it's set in Los Angeles.
Oh, 420?
420, yeah.
Oh, that's well. There's two ways. We're going to go down that dreadlocked, smelly hippie route, 420 the marijuana day, or we're going to go down a certain person's birthday.
Okay, go on. Which way are we going down here?
Which way are you going down?
What is this? A double bluff or something?
No,
It's a good standoff or something.
There used to be a day, and obviously until recently, when certain states in America legalized cannabis, there was a certain day. Was it not a certain day where you were allowed to do it, or something crazy like that? And it's like, and they celebrate a holiday after it, and it just so happens to be in the same day as Hitler's birthday.
Neil, I have absolutely no idea of what you're talking about.
You never heard that before,
no.
Yeah?
No, I haven't, no. Where I was going was Pulp Fiction.
Oh, see, there's so many hidden meanings here, folks. We're figuring them all out.
In that little rant where he goes on about television and violence and so on. And the clock behind him in Los Angeles is at 4:20, and of course 4:20 is the time that is constantly referenced in Pulp Fiction. So I think that's where Quentin Tarantino got that from, because of course Quentin Tarantino absolutely loves his violence in films and so on, doesn't he? And this is sort of a semi-critique of all that, in that television has come to pornographize violence, which is exactly what Quentin Tarantino is doing.
Right. No, I never seen that connection. No, I just seen the Hitler's birthday and the smelly hippie dreadlock day. Yeah.
But anyway,
that's the usual one you see on the internet, isn't it? 420 blaze it.
Yeah, there's memes. There's lots of memes about it. But yeah, they also have a little celebration for Hitler.
It's usually the drug one you see, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I've never seen anyone else mention that. That's just me and my mead.
Oh.
This is the power of mead, gentlemen, and you should try it. And I think that's probably a good message to end it on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drink mead.
Drink mead, yes. Fantastic
Unsubscribe.
stuff. Yes, unsubscribe, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So, thanks to you two gentlemen, and hopefully we will see some new subscribers to replace the old ones next time.
And maybe some interesting suggestions, although we'll ignore all the rubbish ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or
Right.
if there's any film that you specifically want us to review or look at, and you think we might have missed it, let us know.
Okay. Well, bye for now, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.